Hello and welcome to Conscious TV. My name is Renate McNay. In the studio with me today is David Bingham. Hello, David. David was here before with us and we had such a great response from our viewers that we invited him back. And today we talk about art and self-realization. So David, I think my first question is, did art play a role in your own self-realization?
It did, very much so.
Yeah.
Starting really with my time at art school in the 1970s. And there were several painters at that time, especially English ones. David Hockney, Michael Andrews, Ewan Uglow, Lucian Freud too, actually. Where there was a recognition that painting could give rise to a quality of silence and stillness.
Yes.
And this painting here, which is in the Tate Gallery here in London, it's called Mr. and Mrs. Clark and Percy. And there was quite a big influence on this painting from Piero della Francesca, the Renaissance painter. And what I love about this painting is that it has a vibrancy and a brightness, but the key thing is that it has a real quality of stillness. Celia Birtwell, actually, the pose is very similar to the central angel in the painting by Piero.
So when you saw the painting the first time, when you were an art student, did you already see the stillness in the painting?
Yeah, it was talked about. Stillness and silence were qualities that were talked about at art school.
Yes.
And at the time there was a great interest in abstract expressionism. So people like Mark Rothko, his paintings can give rise to the experience of stillness.
Yes.
But I also love figurative paintings that are able to do that. And I think Hockney, especially at that time, was really able to tune in with that. And he was obviously directly experiencing stillness in his own nervous system to be able to produce a painting like that that can give rise to that experience in the viewer.
Right. So it resonates, it's like a mirror, it resonates the place in us.
Yes.
And draws us in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because art has become very conceptual.
Yeah.
Since the Renaissance, it's actually moved much more towards the physical, more towards the conceptual, and also more towards the mortal.
Right.
But this painting, and much of Hockney's work, especially his earlier work, he was really able to tune in with that field of silence. Now, I'm not sure whether David Hockney would be able to put that into words.
Yes.
But experientially, it was obviously there.
He carried it. Yes.
And so the most important thing to me about this painting is actually non-conceptual. So the awareness that is aware of this painting for every human being is actually the simplest form of awareness.
Yes.
So it's awareness that is aware of the painting.
Yeah.
And that awareness is still.
And do you have to step back in order to let the awareness be the foreground, to recognize itself? How do you stand in front of a picture and let it happen? Do you know what I mean?
The easiest way is to simply observe without judgment.
Right. So without getting stuck into the details.
Without allowing the mind to begin to roll, because the mind will say, oh, I like this painting, or I don't like it, or I don't like those clothes, or I don't like that carpet.
That's right.
Or this painting is typical of the 1970s. Or, you know, many other things that the mind can introduce. But the key thing is to allow the stillness to become accessible through just quietly focusing on the painting in a completely relaxed way, almost as a meditation. but not allowing the mind to conceptualize.
Yes.
And by doing that, the nervous system can begin to settle down. Actually, the easiest way to do it is with a book at home or on the internet maybe. Because if you're in the Tate Gallery looking at this painting, you know, there'll be hundreds of people walking by and it's more difficult to do it there. But actually a reproduction or an image on a computer screen will do it as effectively and in silence. So if you create a situation where you can experience it in silence, where there are no distractions, then it's much easier for the mind to settle down and to experience silence.
Well, I had this a few days ago when I did some research for the interview. I went onto the computer, went into the Uffizi,
Yes.
and started, you know, look at the pictures, some other pictures you brought along. And I just, you know, was sitting there and looking, and then I went to Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and things, and I just let it. I mean, I didn't, as you said, I didn't try to figure something out. I just looked, or looking happened.
Yes.
Yeah, it was not that I was looking.
Yes.
Looking happened.
Yes.
And then I started to get all kinds of feelings.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that a computer picture can do it as
Yes.
well, or a book.
Yes.
Yeah.
But really, just getting... It's much easier to enter that state from a state of comfort than from a state of discomfort.
Yeah.
So by sitting down in a comfortable chair,
Yes.
in a room where you feel comfortable, where you have time available, looking at an image that you really resonate with, because it's different for everyone, because the simplest form of awareness is actually available by looking at any painting or actually looking at anything in the natural world. It can happen, you know, by looking at a beautiful person, or by looking at a landscape or an animal, or
or a sunset.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's really, to me, that's the highest purpose of art. The highest form of art is actually non-conceptual rather than conceptual, because it gives rise to an inner knowing of the simplest form of awareness, which I'm going to go into more deeply in our interview.
I know you said earlier to me the highest form of art is to reveal the self.
Yes.
Yeah. Is the artist actually aware that this is what it's about?
I think the period that we've lived through has been a period where form has predominated. So since the Renaissance, for instance, we've moved more towards physicality. We've moved more towards conceptualization. We've also moved towards the idea that it's the artist as an individual who is the creator. So there's authorship of action, authorship. So, you know, the artist says, oh, well, I did this, and, you know, aren't I really good? And then everyone's saying, oh, he's a fantastic artist.
Yes.
You know, look what he's done.
Yes, yes.
But to me, art or any creativity comes from a space that is impersonal. That there's a field of awareness, which is actually a universal field of awareness, that every human being has access to. But true creativity is actually coming from the universal field of awareness. It isn't coming from the human mind. The human mind is more like a receiver. So creativity doesn't reside in the brain. There's an infinite field of creativity that we can tune into. And the best way to tune into that is by stilling the mind into the simplest form of awareness.
Right. Because there is so much art out there who, I mean, you're surprised, you know, what the painter is showing, revealing. You know, it's a very distorted ego structure. Sometimes we can see.
You could say art has become more egoic.
Yes,
you know, and the idea that someone is creating something, you know, to be different, but actually it's because there are cycles of time. In human consciousness, there are cycles where sometimes it's up and it's integrated and there's a wide opening in terms of knowledge,
Yeah.
and at other times it's closed down. And it isn't that you could say that one is better than the other, it's just that because consciousness is infinite,
Yes.
then there can be total fullness in terms of full knowing, but there can also be complete ignorance as well.
Right. And
So,
yeah.
sorry.
So we went through a long period of ignorance.
Yeah.
Is this what you said in the beginning? Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through a long period where form has predominated.
Yes. Yes.
And a loss of the kind of anchorage in one's true universal nature.
Yes.
But it's a long decline, but it's an immediate return, because it's either known or not known.
Mm-hmm.
So the losing of it takes a long period, but the remembering of it is instant.
And we are entering this period
And we're
now.
we're at this really interesting point here where it's like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Well, we talk about that later. So let's
Okay.
maybe move on to the next picture.
So the next one is the one that I referred to actually, which is the Baptism of Christ by Piero della Francesca.
Yes.
And this painting in the National Gallery in London influenced Hockney a great deal. And this painting has, for me, a real tangible stillness. It has a real quality of lightness, of serenity, of silence, and the structure of it, this sort of geometric structure, adds to that, but also the colours are very beautiful. The expressions too, the angels' faces there, you can tell they're in, it's a kind of very subtle joy, which is
Yeah.
a kind of, that's the kind of spiritual state.
Mm-hmm.
But the dove is symbolic of the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
and self-realization is often seen as an Eastern term, but realization in Christian terms, self-realization is realization of the Holy Spirit.
Yes. Yes.
That the Holy Spirit is actually with us all the time.
Yes.
But it appears to have been obscured because over a very long period of time, the familiarity with the clarity of pure consciousness, which is what Christ was teaching about,
Mm-hmm.
that's just declined and it's been lost largely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are individuals over the whole period of history where they've had glimpses and had access to it.
Yes.
But it's coming back now, and there's an impetus available. Well, there's an impetus in many people's lives to kind of find this, and much of what's happening in the world at the moment
Yeah.
is the invitation
Yes.
to return to that level of knowing.
Yes. Yeah. It's. I'm just staggered what's going on in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
out there, and you know, as you said, there is a buzz, and so many people show interest.
Yes.
And want to find out and
Yes.
start with their journey and.
Yeah, I think we've all had experiences in life. It's as though in a relative sense, everything has become available to us. So all sensory experiences are available.
Yeah.
Certainly in the West now, and increasingly in the East. You know, there's a rising, in terms of materialism in the East now too. So,
Yeah.
so I think what many people have experienced is that is something that isn't ultimately satisfying. You know, when we've had the big house, the new car, you know, money, attractive girlfriends, whatever it is,
The happiness doesn't last.
you just have to look in the tabloid newspapers to realise that it
Yeah.
isn't there, because all
Yes.
those people, you know, who appear to be at the forefront in terms of creating the life they want, it isn't delivering.
No.
You know, many of them are just extremely unhappy. And the reason for that is that life's imbalanced because the emphasis has moved almost completely into the material.
Yes. Yes.
And without the knowing of one's true nature, then the material can't be enjoyed. It isn't that there's anything wrong with the material.
Yeah, if it even becomes dangerous.
It
You know,
does.
we are so, I mean, as humans, we are so intelligent, and we fly to the moon, and, you know, everybody has, you know, talks with the whole world on Skype
Yes.
for nothing. But the spiritual side never developed.
No.
It didn't keep up.
No.
So the material side
Has taken over.
is taking us almost to the downfall.
Yeah. And I think you can see that in, you know, in almost every area of society. It's all kind of teetering on the edge, you know,
Yes.
whether it's education or law and order or religion.
Yeah.
You know, most key areas, health, you know, most areas in society, they're kind of on the edge of the abyss because it's just become so extreme.
Yes. Yeah.
And it looks as though something's gone terribly wrong, when really there's an opportunity that's arising for people within the chaos. And I
Yes.
think the chaos is going to increase over the next couple of years or so.
Yeah.
And that's because there's an invitation that's available to more people. And I think a lot of people do want to see beyond the obvious. Not everyone, though. And it is a matter of, you know, what the individual wants. You know, some people like it as it is, and they'll be gripping on, and it'll be a real white knuckle ride for them. You know, they'll be holding on, you know, to what is known, because
Yeah.
while there's the sense of being a separate individual, there's also fear, because there's duality. But once true nature is seen, then fear disappears.
Yeah.
And then what takes the place of fear is faith or surrender, because
Yeah.
there's a trusting that actually there's an infinite level of intelligence that's available,
Yes.
that will structure life experience and take care of everything for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the possibility that's emerging for
It's the
people.
possibility. It's just not everybody believes in that. You know, somebody a few days ago went to a lecture, and somebody said the biggest downfall of the humans is the inertia. You know, the fear of this,
Yes.
the unknown.
Yes.
Yeah, and the fear of change.
Yes.
Yeah, they all want to just stay everything the same.
Just
and,
as it is.
And that's how we actually kill the creative impulse,
Yes.
yeah, which wants to move more forward into the evolution. But you say it is happening.
The great thing is that self-realization is the realization of one's true nature.
Yes.
It isn't anything new. It's permanent. It's totally stable. It's the foundation on which the whole range of experience can happen. But it's happening on a foundation of total stability. You know, Jesus in the Bible, there's the parable of the man who built his house on sand and the man who built his house on rock.
Yes.
Self-realization is where the man builds his house on rock, because one's true nature is totally stationary. It's stable. It isn't involved in the stream of time. It isn't involved in the virtual reality of human experience. It's the basis on which all of life is built. And therefore, knowing that, and actually seeing that it's never left us, it's always been with us, it's only been obscured. There's been a veiling.
Yes.
But once it's seen that we've always been that, there's a realization that it isn't new.
Yeah.
So we don't have to move from where we are to realize what we truly are.
Yes.
It's only a case of becoming clear.
Yeah.
And once you are clear, then the contrast between the stability of one's true nature and the total calamity and adventure of relative experience gives life an absolutely amazing dimension, because we're living then simultaneously our true infinite timeless nature, but also the point value of human experience apparently moving through time and space. But that's only a virtual reality.
So what you say, David, is The only thing which is necessary is a clear understanding,
A clear seeing, yeah.
a clear seeing.
Mm.
So that is an experience, because, you know, some would argue that intellectual understanding is not enough of our true nature.
Intellectual understanding isn't enough.
Isn't enough.
No, it isn't.
But the clear seeing is...
Clear seeing doesn't happen in the intellect.
Right.
Clear seeing is where awareness sees itself,
Yes.
which I'm hoping to give you a pointer to.
Okay,
Shall we just
so
swap that
we
one
can
over?
have clear seeing by looking at the picture.
See if I can find this one.
And I know this one is a very interesting one.
It is.
Yeah. So talk us through.
This drawing is by Ernst Mach, and it's called Inner Perspective. There's actually a very well-known teacher of realization called Douglas Harding,
Yes.
who awakened, using that term, when viewing this. But also the reason I've brought it along is that I have a friend of 30, 40 years who on the 21st of December saw this,
Yeah.
and the shift happened as a result
Wow.
of seeing it.
And where did he see it?
He saw it in a book,
All right.
and he's familiar with all the spiritual concepts. He's been meditating for years. He's done all of that sort of stuff. And then he saw this drawing, and he said to me, "So that's what you mean. I see it now. It's so obvious." So what I'd like to do is just to explain briefly the important aspect of this drawing, because what Ernst Mach has done is he's separated the consciousness that one is from the form. So there's a view through a window, and there's a room, and then there's a guy lying on a settee or something, and he's drawing. But on the top of the drawing is the eyebrow, and on the right hand side is the nose, and on the bottom is his moustache.
So
there.
let me see. So this is the eyebrow.
Yes, that's the nose down
Right.
here,
Yes.
and then this is his moustache.
Oh, right. Yes. I can see that.
So
Yeah.
it's actually demonstrating what we're all experiencing already. If you just stop and you just look at the form, you'll see that there's a form in front of you, that there's a body sitting on a seat.
Yes.
What this isn't showing is the mind running with all the sort of dialogue that it constantly runs. But what this drawing clearly shows is that the consciousness that one is observing the whole thing. It isn't just observing the room, it's actually observing the body. And the way it does that is it's demonstrating that the body is actually a vehicle. The body is the vehicle that we use to navigate three-dimensional reality. But the consciousness that one is here. It actually encompasses the whole of the room as well.
Yes.
But what we truly are is the infinite consciousness that is in this space here. And that consciousness isn't personal. It moves into identification with the body and takes on the personality, the mind structures. But what's happened in human life, in the period that we've lived through, the belief is that the consciousness that we are belongs to the physical realm, that
That's
consciousness is a byproduct of physical matter.
Yes.
But actually consciousness has never moved in to manifestation. That the consciousness that we are has always been consciousness that is aware of the forms.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
So once that's seen, and it can be seen very clearly, because just sitting down, if anyone just sits down, that's actually what they see. You can see the eyebrow, you can see the side of the nose, I don't know, some ladies don't have a moustache, some do. But that's what you see. You know, you can just see the whole thing. But it's realising that here's a vehicle.
Yes.
This is the vehicle that we're using. This vehicle, the body actually belongs to the physical realm. But the consciousness that one is, that is experiencing through this, has never actually entered into the formless realm. The consciousness is already, it's just here.
Yeah, but isn't it the form? Isn't consciousness also the form?
Consciousness, the form is an expression of consciousness, certainly.
Yes, yes.
It is. And obviously, everything that's appearing is only consciousness.
Yes.
But it's consciousness that has taken on a structure. So the infinite consciousness that one is also structures itself to give rise to the experience of diversity.
So when I say I, then it was always only ever consciousness.
It was. The I is actually being moved in people's experience generally into the realm of identification with the body.
Yes.
But as you rightly say, the I has actually never moved. The I belongs to infinite consciousness. So the I was never actually created. The I is uncreated because it belongs to infinite consciousness. It doesn't belong to the individual.
Yes, yes.
And there is only one I.
Yeah.
And you are it, as everyone is it.
That's the I am.
It's the I am, the simple I am.
Yeah.
But then when we get the little vehicle, which we hire for 80 years or something, we put a name on it. So the name is added, and then off we go with our little adventure.
Yeah.
And then in identification, that adventure can seem either amazing or absolutely horrific. But it's actually moving to become more amazing than horrific for most people now, or at least that's the opportunity that's there.
So David, did you realize yourself by looking at the picture?
The clear seeing of awareness, of still awareness, the simplest form of awareness, of non-conceptual awareness, was experienced 40 years ago or more, actually. And it was totally clear when looking at David Hockney's painting.
That was the first painting we saw.
Yes. But I didn't know at that time what that was, as most people don't.
Yes.
Many people, I remember having conversations with fellow students, and we were talking about the quality of silence in David Hockney's paintings. And we all knew what it was. We were totally familiar with that, and we knew what it was. But we didn't know that that was our essential nature.
Right.
We just thought that that's something that's a byproduct of a particular type of painting.
Yes, yes. And when did it happen? When did you know this is your true nature?
Well, for me, as I mentioned in the previous interview, it happened on November the 13th, 2005. When I was listening to...
Do you know the time?
It was about 4:35 in the afternoon. But I was... I'd been listening to a recording of an interview with a guy called John Wheeler, who's an American, and he's just very clear. And it's different for everyone. The friend I mentioned who saw clearly on the 21st of December 2009 had listened to the John Wheeler interview 3 or 4 years ago, but it didn't do it for him. It's different for everyone.
Sure, yes.
So you can't actually say what's going to trigger it. But the thing is that one's own inner knowing, one's own instinct, is the thing to go by more than what anyone is saying. So the key thing is just following what resonates for you.
Yes.
And by doing that, the self which is ever present will just reveal itself.
Yeah. Okay, so
So-
let's move on.
Okay. So,
So we are talking about the evolution of consciousness now.
yeah, we're talking. We'll begin by just talking about one's true nature,
Yes.
which is the simplest form of awareness, and then we can talk about the evolution of consciousness in human life, or in that's taking place in the universe.
In the moment also.
Yes.
Yes. Great.
So when you look at a painting, or when you meditate, or when you watch ballet, or when you're watching something, or when you're looking at a landscape that you love, or when you're looking into the eyes of your child, whatever does it for you, whatever stops the mind from the conceptualization, will bring you to this level, which is one's true nature. And
Yeah.
one's true nature is consciousness. And consciousness is at the basis of everything in creation. And consciousness is conscious awareness. And awareness is the primary. So there is awareness, and that awareness is aware of the body.
Yes.
It's aware of the thinking process. It's aware of the emotions. It's aware of all the experiences through the senses. It's aware of the world. It's aware in the dream state. And in the deep sleep state, it is simply aware of itself.
Yes.
What consciousness does, there are cycles where consciousness is fully knowing itself, and there are other times, the time that most people are familiar with now, which is where consciousness has been concealing itself. And the way it conceals itself is by these key elements here. So awareness is primary, so there is always awareness. There's awareness in the waking state, there's awareness in the dream state, awareness of the dream environment, and in the deep sleep state, although we're not conscious of it generally,
Yeah.
some people are, I think.
I
generally-
experienced it once.
Yes. Yeah, I remember you telling me. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
well. There can be consciousness that arises in the dream state, so it
Yeah.
can be consciousness of sleeping.
Yes, yes.
But generally, awareness is just simply aware of itself. But the way our essential nature is obscured is by these elements here, and they're actually very specific. So in reality, there is only timeless being. That there is ultimately no such thing as time. Here we are now, in this moment, there is only presence. Time only appears if we think of the structure of the universe, if we think of the planets moving and their relationships. So if you just look, if there's just simple noticing, is there time now?
No,
No.
just presence.
There's just presence.
Yes.
There's just awareness that is aware.
Yes,
So there's awareness that's aware of these bodies sitting on these sofas.
yes.
What the mind does is the mind creates a story of the past and a story of the future.
And of course, I have to look at the clock behind you and keep time. And hopefully not forget it. So time is important. But
Time's
it is
important in a
happening
relative
in this
sense.
moment.
Yes. We're talking ultimately. Ultimately, there is no time.
Yeah.
Relatively, there is time.
Yes.
Relatively, there's the appearance of time. Yeah, we have to adhere to the clock,
Yeah,
in the way we live our daily lives.
yes.
But it's a case of not getting confused between the two. But presence, the timeless being, is obscured through the concept of time, which is when the mind is creating this conceptualization of a past and a future, when
Right.
actually there is only this here.
Yes. And the mind does it, I guess, out of memory.
Yes, and
It's
habit.
all, that's all where time is.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So awareness, the key element, is obscured by the thinking process, by the conceptualizing process.
Yes.
And the way it's obscured for most people these days is through complete identification with the story of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people tend to be preoccupied with their own individual stories, you know, thinking of what they need to do, you know, what their problems are, where they need to get to be happy, what's gone wrong.
A lot about survival
Yes.
of the physical body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Identification with the physical body and
Right.
all of the problems that attend that. Yeah. The third level, which is
Yeah.
existence.
Yes.
Existence is actually pure existence, which belongs to infinite consciousness that we are. Existence, pure existence, is obscured by the phenomena of the body. Because for most people, if you say, do you exist? They'd say, oh yeah, of course I exist.
Yeah.
What they're referring to is the idea of the existence of the body. They think, oh, I exist, you know, between these two dates.
Yes.
But actually consciousness is permanent. Consciousness is just here and now.
Yeah.
But the I,
So what's the difference between presence and existence?
presence is just pure being.
Yeah.
And these words are actually, to me, probably the clearest form of pointing to the nature of reality. But obviously these words aren't the reality.
Yes.
They're still concepts of reality. So there is a kind of blending between presence and existence. But to me, presence is the simple knowing within the timeless being.
Right.
But existence is the existence of the timeless being.
Okay.
So they're quite close.
Yes.
They're actually just the one thing.
Yes,
There is actually
sure.
only the one thing
Yeah.
that knows itself
Yes.
and also knows the relative experience.
Yes. Okay.
But these three elements, it's quite useful to look at them in this way, because you can see people are familiar with these elements. You know, most people, there's only a knowing of that.
That's right.
There's no awareness of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, when they think they're knowing that, all
Yes.
they're really is experiencing is that.
Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if I bring this one up.
Yes.
So it's just an elaboration really of the previous one, which is that this is the permanent, this is the never changing,
Yeah.
and this is the ever changing.
Yes.
The way most humans experience currently is just that part. There's no familiarity or acceptance of this.
No-
Most people
No awareness of
have
that.
no awareness
Yes.
of this, even though it's fully present.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the paradox.
Yes.
So, with taking the human being,
Yeah.
the human actually belongs
I
on
mean,
this level.
they can have, without being aware of that, they can have experiences.
Yes.
But without
Yes.
understanding, like you were saying, you know,
Yes.
40 years ago, you
Yes.
experienced the stillness by looking at the
Exactly.
picture
Exactly.
without knowing that.
Yes.
And I know many people, you know, have experiences
Yes.
by looking at the sunset or listening to music,
Yes.
but are not.
But the total clarity
Yeah,
is obscured
that's
because
right.
it comes in as a glimpse.
Yes.
And it appears to be something that emerges in the stream of time.
Yes.
It's seen for a moment and then it's gone again.
Yes. And would you say there is a process where this part moves more and more into awareness, or is it just I know with some people it's just an explosion.
It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
The idea of self-realization is something that's actually evolved over time. Because when I was a boy, I was only familiar with Jesus. I'd maybe heard of Buddha.
Yeah.
But, there were very few people, there were only divine beings that I was aware of.
Yes.
That were fully aware of God.
Yes.
Or fully aware of one's true universal nature.
Yeah.
Over the past 40 or 50 years, in the appearance, the sort of virtual reality of human experience, you could call it, there's been a development. So, say in the 1960s, there were gurus and teachers that came over from the East with the concept of enlightenment or self-realization. And they gave people the idea that it was possible. So before then, in many of the Western traditions, we had to wait until we were in heaven or, some other state to be able to experience our true nature.
Yes.
But from the 60s, there was the idea that it was possible to attain enlightenment. There was at least the concept of enlightenment. And then, say, through that period, say through to the 90s, it started to speed up a little bit, because there were examples of people who seemed to shift into self-realization. But there were not many of them, really. And it quite often happened with no spiritual practice. Sometimes there had been, sometimes there hadn't.
Yeah.
More recently, there are many examples of people where the true nature has been realized.
I mean, it was so fascinating because when we started with Conscious TV, we had no idea. All of a sudden, all these people started popping up only in England.
Yes.
Who were self-realized, and
Yes.
and it was just amazing. We had no idea. Yeah.
Well, self-realization. What happened to me is it seemed that it was something that was virtually unobtainable to now, where it is completely attainable. It's really a question of accepting it, because the key thing is to accept one's ever-present true beingness or awareness.
But how can you accept something you did not experience?
Because it isn't experiential. Because the awareness that Renate in this moment appears to be aware. Renate is aware of the body sitting on a sofa, of talking to this other person.
Yes.
And self-realization is the simple acceptance that that awareness that is aware has no boundaries. That it isn't something that is owned by Renate, that it is actually a universal awareness, and it always has been universal, that there isn't anything within that.
Yeah, but you see, if I look at myself, or as my own, at my own process, I would hear these words, I would understand them, but there was one point where there was an experience, actually just talking with you, where a shift happened. Yeah, so what you say, this shift doesn't have to happen?
No, the shift quite often obscures, because it makes it appear as though a shift is necessary. What Renate had was an experience.
Yeah.
So there can be a deepening of the experience of silence, of stillness, of awareness, without any concepts arising within it. And as that deepens as an experience, it's
Yes.
something that becomes tangible. But what the mistake many people make is that they think that that experience has to become a permanent state for one to be self-realized.
That's right. Yes.
But
You kn-
self-realization, nothing actually changes in terms of one's beingness. One's beingness is here already.
But isn't self-realization, when self-realization happens, isn't there also a mutation in the brain, and you are different
Yes.
afterwards?
Yeah. Yeah. What happens? Trying to put it really simply.
Yeah.
There's no shift experientially in self-realization, but what does change is, up to the point of self-realization, there's quite often intense seeking and there's quite often intense suffering as well.
Yes.
At the point that one sees that one always has been infinite, unbounded consciousness, then the structure that is arising through the human nervous system and the brain does change. In that previously there was desire, so there was desire for enlightenment, or there was desire to be happy, or there was desire for something to change. Once the self has been seen and accepted, or just simply accepted, then there is no longer the seeking in time, because there's a seeing that here we are, here
Yes.
and now.
Yes.
The being is fully present.
Yes.
There's nothing missing.
Yes.
It's absolutely full
Yes.
and total and perfect here and now.
Yes.
Therefore, it's only a matter of allowing everything to arise. So the agenda that was there before in the seeking to try to find something in time, to try to find what was missing, to try to fulfill this desire to become happy, all of that just collapses, and then there's an allowing of life. So there then is just a simple responding to what's arising.
You know, there is so much energy involved into the seeking,
Absolutely.
that when actually it is seen, it is so simple, I guess, that it's so difficult to accept.
Well, I was talking to a guy the other evening, a guy who's very clear actually, and he said to me, so really what you're saying is you've got to act as though you are already self-realized.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, that's what you've got to do.
Yes.
I said, except you are already realized. It's not that you've got to pretend, because you already are.
Exactly.
So there isn't any pretending, there just has to be a simple accepting, because once it's accepted, then there's a change in the functioning.
Right.
So rather than pursuing things in time, there's an adjustment, and there can be a period of time involved where there's an adjustment,
Yes.
so that all of the seeking and all of the turbulence and all of the strain and all of the effort that's involved, that just begins to unwind.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's simply an allowing of life.
Yeah.
So life is happening, and then one notices that there's an intelligent structure behind the whole of life, that what you thought you were doing, you're actually only responding to.
Yeah.
And that's true for everyone anyway. People
Yes.
think they're doing this and doing that and pushing this and shoving this.
Yes. Yes.
They're trying to,
Yeah.
but it's just happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once you see that, all of the tension goes out of it, because you can just begin to relax, because you are the infinite timeless being. You've only pretended that you're Renate. And therefore, the attributes of the infinite timeless being become available to you. And what happens then is the infinite intelligence, which previously was just sitting in the background,
Yes.
starts to come to the foreground.
Yes.
and life then becomes an adventure. So instead of feeling that you're going through time, looking for something that's missing, you realise that you're just here. And it's a bit like reading a book, where you're on this page, and here's the book, and it's the most amazing book you've ever read. And why would you want to be turning it over to see what's happening?
Right.
You don't, because this is where you want to be, on this page. You don't want the
Yes.
book to end.
Yes, yes.
So you just fully absorb exactly what is here and now. So this attentiveness comes in, because the time goes out of it. And so it's really a matter of beginning to notice that everything is as it should be. Beginning to notice that you're exactly where you should be,
Yes,
and it's fine as it is.
yes.
And then just becoming intuitively attuned to what is happening.
Yes,
Let go of the idea that there's anything wrong. Let go of the idea that anyone has done anything to you or can do anything to you. Any level of blaming, anything that's continuing to spin the idea of duality, that there's you here and then there's this alien world that's coming at you in all sorts of ways. Let go of all those concepts. Once you let go of those concepts, then what appeared to be the outside world, the separate world, begins to change. And then you realise that what appeared to be the separate world is an extension of one's consciousness. And when one's consciousness changes, then the world changes.
sounds very simple. I think we are coming to an end.
Yes.
Slowly. Do you want to show these pictures? You're
I'm not sure whether it's
Necessary.
relevant at the moment. Really, I think
Yeah.
I haven't gone into a
Yes.
description of this, but maybe another day.
Yes. So anyway, you feel that the evolution of consciousness is speeding, accelerating.
It's accelerating
Yeah.
now, and that acceleration is increasing.
Yes.
And the opportunity is there, though, for everyone.
Yes.
If there's a feeling for this, if there's a spark
Yeah.
that arises in the consideration of the possibility
Yeah.
that one actually is safe and that one's nature isn't limited by form,
Yeah.
then the resources to realise that are available.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Conscious TV, and we see you again soon.